Now I am going to show you one important library called Immer, which will help you when you get started with Redux Toolkit journey. So it is important to understand using Immer what we can produce and what is the advantage of using Immer, because behind the scene Redux Toolkit will be using this Immer library. So before getting started with Immer, first let us understand what is the use of Immer library. Now directly I am going to show you the example in JavaScript application, because if I start with Redux application, I should be creating separate file. I do not want to confuse you, because in Redux toolkit behind the scene this library will be used. So you should only understand how this library will be working. So I have opened Redux JavaScript application folder. Inside that I am having multiple reducer.js, and in this we have created reducers for pizza and burger. And from starting itself I have mentioned reducers are pure function, which means we cannot mutate our state. So that is the reason whenever we are changing the property of pizza base, each and every time we are just spreading out the state, we are just making copy of a state, and the properties which has to be updated, only those properties we are updating. So this is simple application. Even if we spread out the state, we are not having any problem. But in real world application, the state will be more complex with nested levels. So during that time, managing the state in this way will be tiresome, and also it will be very complex. So now first I will be showing you what will be the problem, and then I will use Immer library to avoid that problem. Here inside this root folder, I will be creating one file immer.js, and inside this I am going to paste the state where I am storing the information related to sandwich. Here I am having type of sandwich, and then I am having ingredients property, and this ingredient is also an object where I am having bread, filling and sauce properties. So now what I want to do, I just want to update this filling property which is available inside the ingredients, and ingredient is available inside our initial state. First, I'm just going to show you how to update this filling property using Redux pattern. Then I'm just going to apply Immer library to get the same output. First step, I'm just going to define action type. Above this, I will be writing const. I'm just going to give the variable as fill update is equal to string value of fill update. Copy and paste. Second step, we have to create action creator. Here, I will give the action creator name as update fill, and inside this, I'm just going to pass one parameter filling. Why I am passing this parameter? Because this is the extra information I have to pass to my action. And this action creator will be returning action. Inside that, first I have to pass the type, copy and paste, separate by comma. Then I'm going to write the payload, and for this payload I will be assigning this filling. So we have created action type. Initial state is defined where we are having nested level, and then I have created action creator. And third step, we have to define our reducer. Below this, I'm just going to define reducer, and reducer will be taking current state and action as its parameter. And for this state, I'm just going to assign initial state. Now what we have to do? We have to use switch statement. Inside this, I'm just going to give action dot type. Then here I will be writing case. My first case is fill type. So here I will be writing return. Inside this, what I will do? First, I'm just going to make a copy of entire state, because inside this state I am having type and ingredients. So I have just made a copy of entire state. Then what I have to update? I have to update this filling property. And this property is available inside this ingredients. So here below this, I'm just going to write this ingredients property. And this is nothing but it is an object. And inside this object, again, I have to make sure my bread and sauce remains unchanged. Only thing I have to change this filling property. So here inside this, again, I have to make a copy of this state.ingredients. Because inside these ingredients, I am having three properties. So that is the reason I have to make copy of state.ingredients. And inside this, what property I have to update? I only have to update this filling property. For this, I will be giving action.payload because inside this payload, while dispatching the action, we are passing the value. So that is the reason filling should be assigned as action.payload. If you see here, this is very complex and maybe in simple application you can do this, but if the state is complex and if we are having nested level, in this way you have to copy the state so that our reducer will be pure function and directly we are not mutating our state. By looking at this is very scary, but still we have to do this if we are not including any library while performing this kind of logic. So once it is done, below this, I'm just going to write default case. And inside this, I'm just going to return my state. Now successfully, I have created action creator, initial state, and also reducer is complete. Now what I have to do? I have to create the store. So for that, I have to import my Redux library. I'm using JavaScript application. So I'm just going to make use of this require. Inside this, I will be writing Redux. Then from this Redux, I just have to access create store method. Const create store is equal to, from this Redux library, I just have to access this create store. But later, when we start with Redux toolkit, we are not going to use this create store method. Instead, we are going to use configure store. Now what I have to do? Below this, I'm just going to invoke this create store. And inside this, we have to pass reducer as its argument. And whatever value we are getting, I'm just going to store inside one variable store. Now below this, what I will do, I'm just going to log this initial state. And how we can access to initial state? By using this get state method, which is provided by store. Now I'm going to subscribe to my store so that whatever changes I am doing, that will be reflected and I can see the output. So here I will write store.subscribe, and inside this I'm going to pass this callback function, and here I'm going to write log updated state. Then again I'm going to write store.getState. And this entire value I'm just going to assign to this unsubscribe, because after changing we have to unsubscribe from our store. Successfully we have set up the store. Now below this I'm just going to dispatch the action, and this dispatch we are getting from store. So here I will write store.dispatch, and inside this I'm just going to pass this update fill. This is nothing but my action creator. Inside this, now I have to pass the argument. Here I will be writing grilled veggies and cheese. And finally, I have to unsubscribe from my store. I believe you are already aware of these steps: how to create the store, how to get access to initial state, how to get access to this updated state. Once I am having all this set up, I am just dispatching this action creator update fill, where I am passing this grilled veggies and cheese as its argument. Once I dispatch the action, that value will be passed here. that value will be assigned to the payload. And successfully inside this filling property, I am just passing that value. Now I'm just going to open terminal. Inside this, I will write node immer.js. Hit enter. Now you can see this is my initial state where I am having lettuce and tomato, and after updating I am having grilled veggies and cheese. Rest entire thing remains same. I am having veggies, whole grains, and I am having mustard. But now inside this, if I do not perform, let me just comment. Open this terminal. Again I will run. Now if you see inside my updated state, inside ingredients, I am only having filling. Rest two properties are not copied and both the properties are gone from my updated state. So this is the problem. If we are not copying our entire state, entire thing will be overridden and we are only left with this filling property. So now definitely by using Redux pattern, we are getting the result, but this is very complex. As a developer, we do not want to get into the mess and we do not have to write this kind of logic. So to help this state updation process, we are going to make use of the library called Immer. So first step, to use any library, we have to install that library. I will come here, I will clear terminal. Inside this, I will write npm I Immer. I stands for install. Package is installed. I will open package.json, and inside this dependencies, you can see we are having this Immer. Then second step, we have to import produce method from Immer library. I will write here const. I am going to write here produce is equal to require, and inside this I have to require Immer, and from this Immer I just want to require this produce method. Okay, simple enough. From this Immer library, I'm just accessing this produce method. Third step, I'm just going to comment this entire return. Comment this entire return. Below this, instead of returning this object, I'm just going to return this produce method. And this produce method will be taking two arguments. First will be the current state. You have to pass in this way. I will increase the size. You can see instead of returning this entire object, we are going to return this produce method, which will be taking two arguments. First, we are going to pass current state, and second argument, I will be passing this function. And inside this arrow function, I am going to pass the argument as draft. So this second argument inside this produce method, which is going to receive draft copy of a state. So basically what Immer will be doing, it is going to update this draft state which is having draft copy of a state. So Immer will be updating this draft state as if state is mutable. So inside this, instead of copying entire state, what I am going to do directly, I am just going to update this draft state. So here I will be writing draft, and from this state I'm just going to access this ingredients, and from this I'm going to access this filling property, and inside this I'm just going to assign action.payload. Action.payload. So here directly we are updating this filling property, but behind the scene Emma still needs to translate the code which will be looking something like this. But as a developer, you do not have to worry about all this thing. Directly, we are having the package available. Using that, we can directly update the state in this way as if our state is mutable. But behind the scene, Immer will be translating the code in this way and it will be giving us the result. Now, I will save. I will open terminal. I will run this node immer.js. Hit enter. Now you can see again I will be having the same result. Entire thing is as it is, and Only thing I have updated is filling property. So in this way, using this Immer library, you don't have to worry about copying the state, because using this Immer library and using this draft copy of the state, we are just updating the properties which has to be updated. So now Immer has simplified this handling immutable data, and this will be working very well with Redux. If you want to work with Redux pattern and if you're having complex state, then you can make use of Immer library. But once you shift to modern way of writing Redux, that is Redux toolkit, then you are not going to use this Immer, because behind the scene Redux toolkit will be using this library.